Hi there and welcome to Bustthenet. Yes, finally, I've got my tactics guide out and it's going to be taking a look at some of the changes that have been made to the tactical creator. We're going to be looking at some of the recommendations for the game Football Manager 2019. We're also going to deal with some of the major changes that have been made to quite a few things as far as roles, player instructions are concerned. And I will be recommending a preset that might be easier for most people when they begin the game. Before we begin, let's take a look at one of the biggest changes to the game. No, it's actually play instructions. Quite a number of roles have had their play instructions tweaked. As you can see, a lot of roles that used to have lockdown, close down instructions, well, they've been removed. And this is largely due to the fact that we now have a tactical creator that has some roles hard coded with pressing intensities. Now, we also have other roles that have been tweaked here and there. There are two new roles in the game. I like to call them new because they're not going to be playing the same way as they did before. So as far as I'm concerned, they're new. The Libero attack duty can now be played in the central defense. So the sweeper has been removed. So the libero, as far as I'm concerned, is like a new role because we did ask for a ball-playing defender that could bring the ball out from defense right into the opponent's half, and we've got that in the form of the libero. We've also got a new, what I like to call a new role, because even though the defensive forward has been renamed to the pressing forward, there is one duty that is totally new. It's the pressing forward on attack duty, who as gets further forward, moves into channels and close down more as play instructions. So apart from the changes to the rest of those roles and duties, of which there's quite a few, we have got two that are going to play differently. Now, it's worth noting that the Mazzala and the Carrero right now have got stay wider added to their instructions. This is going to affect how we play. The Trequartista and the Engash have had their close down much less instructions removed, but when you go into the game, it's going to be a very good idea if you go in to take a look at the play instructions for each position. Now, when you get into the game the first time, you're going to be faced with this screen. This is the new tactical creator screen. It's got presets that you can choose from. There are several presets that are listed here. There's a control possession, there's gegenpress tiki-taka, vertical tiki-taka, wing play, route 1, fluid, counter-attack, direct counter-attack, catenaccio, park the bus and create your own style. If you're not happy with any of these, yes, you can of course go and make your own. Essentially, they're all basically grouped TIs to get you to play in a certain way. Now, this has been a common complaint for most people. I mean, if I wanted to play vertical tiki-taka in FM18, there'll be a lot of instructions that I had to lay down. If somebody wanted to play the gegenpress, they'd have to lay down a lot of play instructions as well. And now, well, the game has made it easier for us to do all this without having to get a PhD in Football Manager. And essentially, when you're looking at the new tactical creator, you can break it down into 4 component parts. The most important component part, without a shadow of a doubt right now, is still mentality, because it affects quite a few things in the game. Now, there are 3 other broad groups that SI have created for the purposes of helping people plan their transitions. There are three of these, including possession, in transition, and out of possession. What we need to understand is the defensive shape out of position, because the defensive shape out of position contains 3 team instructions: offside trap, line of engagement, defensive line, all 3 of which affect how you set your team up. I have left out defensive width, which should be included in defensive shape. So there should be 4 over there. As far as in possession and in transition are concerned, a lot of what's going to happen here will also determine on your own player instructions, the roles that you have chosen, and the mentality that you play on. Another big change to the game is how shape now plays. Well, we don't have to care about shape anymore because it's been removed from the game. It's been renamed as Team Fluidity. Essentially, this just refers to how many players are going to be involved in transitions. It's a function of the number of support duties you've chosen in your team. The more support players you have, the more fluid your tactic is, which essentially means you'll have more players supporting the attack or supporting whatever mentality you've chosen. The more, in order for you to change this and get it to be a bit more structured so that you get some players staying back to defend, all you got to do is start changing some of their duties. And once you change your duties, slowly the tactic will change and it will inform you that now your transitions are a bit more flexible. Is this important? Not really, because all I care about right now is who is going up to help us during a transition, and all I need to know are who are my support players. So this is one of the quality of life changes that we've seen in FM19. In previous editions of Football Manager, setting your defensive shape wasn't very easy. Now FM19 makes it a hell of a lot easier because they've included some components. When you put them together, this will define playable areas on the pitch. These include the offside trap, the line of engagement, defensive line, and defensive width. Defensive width basically sets up how your team is going to sit when they don't have the ball. If you play with a narrow defensive width, essentially you're giving up space on the flanks. So you get becoming tighter and you are forcing the opposition to meet congestion if they play the ball inside the pitch. So you're giving up space on the flanks, allowing them to cross. So if you want to play with defensive width, narrow defensive width, you really need good headers because you're going to be faced with a lot of crosses. You're going to be faced with a lot of headers that you need to clear from the box. For some of you out there who are really creative, you will probably be able to create some interesting variations to your defenses, because if you have these guys who can win every single header, all you need is a playmaker sitting in front of them, playing off a low line of engagement and hitting teams on the break. So what you'll need to do is to come up with some interesting roles and duties for your attacking group of players so that they can take advantage of these clearances, or rather risky passes that are going to be coming out from the back. The defensive line and the line of engagement can be adjusted together or they can be adjusted separately. Now the defensive line basically tells your players how far up the pitch they can afford to be when you have the ball. The higher up your defensive line is, the more space you leave behind. This is why using the offside trap is always a good idea when you play with a high defensive line. The line of engagement basically is an indication for your team. What it does is you will set a line of engagement, and this will influence how your team closes down, or rather how your team presses. The higher your line of engagement, the earlier they start their pressing. The lower your line of engagement, the later they start their pressing. This will be influenced by where the opposition is on the pitch. So in this example, you're playing with a lower defensive line, which literally means that your boys aren't very adventurous. They're going to be sitting at the edge of the box when they're defending. If you play with a much lower line of engagement, you're essentially saying, okay, we have reduced the playable area on the pitch. We are playing very narrow. We expect crosses to come in, and we are going to be trying to sit our own half before we begin pressing, which is why your pressing is going to be important here as well. So you're going to have to decide how you're going to press. So the moment the boys come into the half, you may tell them to press urgently, and when they do press urgently, you're going to have a lot of space to hit on the counter. The question now becomes, how do you use this space? And that is answered by choosing the right roles and duties in your tactic. So whenever you're going to be playing this game, the defensive shape is going to be an important concept for you to get a handle on, so that you can set up good tactics. A high line of engagement and a low defensive line may not be a very good idea, because this is going to create a lot of playable area on the pitch. In which case you're going to be struggling in the center of the park, because the amount of ground that your team has to cover is going to be considerable. Now, there are going to be times when you're playing with a high line of there are going to be times when you're playing with a standard line of engagement, and you'll be wondering why your players are closing down all of a sudden. Well, this could be influenced largely due to the pressing intensity. You might have accidentally said that. This could be also affected by the mentality Because if you're playing on an aggressive mentality, chances are they're going to be playing with a bit more risk. So they might go thinking, hey, I might as well close down. And if you have decided to give some PIs along the way and you've forgotten to remove them, or you might have roles that you've chosen which are naturally aggressive. So whenever you create any of these tactics, while we understand what the defensive shape can do, we also have to put this into context, because remember, mentality affects everything in the game. Roles and duties play a part, as well as other team instructions and play instructions. So while these sliders or these little things on the screen can help us set up our defensive shape, we still need to pay attention to other facets of the tactical creator so that we can get our tactics working the way we want them to. So why did I start with defense first? Because championships are won with good defenses. You need to think about how you're going to be transitioning from defense into attack on a regular basis. The next feature we want to focus on deals with the transition phases, and the tooltips are fairly descriptive. For once, I can credit SI because they've done a good job with the tooltips themselves. We've got counter press for when possession has been lost, regroup when possession has been won, counter, and hold shape. This basically define how your team is going to move, the positions they're going to take up when the ball has been lost or when the ball has been won. Counter press is a bit more of the Jurgen Klopp style of football, which we see Liverpool playing currently, which the whole goal is to try and win the ball as quickly as they can after losing it, so that they can attack a team that might be out of position. Regroup basically is a slightly different style of football where the teams will drop back, hold their shape, and they don't want to be caught out of position, and they're more worried about the counter after they've lost the ball. So this could be a defensive strategy, this could be a more attacking strategy, but you can definitely play an attacking mentality with regroup, where your focus primarily is not to be caught on the counter. And when possession has been won, we've got a choice to immediately counter or to hold shape. They want to play a style of football where they're trying to retain possession and to work down the clock. Whereas in counter, you could be using this kind of a strategy if you're playing with a standard to a low line or defensive line and a low line of engagement. Here, your team could be sitting back, waiting for the opposition to attack you. And then once they lose the ball, you immediately counter. At the end of the day, your roles and duties are still important, because you're going to have to think about how your roles and duties fit into your overall strategy. As far as the goalkeeper and distribution is concerned, well, it's all about transitions, and they've stuck the PIs they used to be for the goalkeeper here, making life, well, there's not too much difference here. I mean, distribute the area, distribute the position. These were always in the game. Now they're just on this screen. Maybe it's a quality of life change, but it's a new tactical creator, so we'll give it to SI for this. Now, the next phase that we want to look at is the in possession phase. This literally refers to the whole phase when you have the ball. It could be in defense, it could be in attack, right? So you're gonna have things like the attacking with extremely narrow. Just literally means that your team is gonna take positions that are closer to each other, but the ball is going to move more centrally. And then the extreme end is, of course, the extremely wide settings where you use the full width of the pitch. Now, be very, very careful when you go extremely wide and extremely narrow. Now, both these could place different requirements on your team. Extremely narrow could force you. It could force you to think of: do my players have good off the ball? Do they have good passing? I mean, this is still important because they're playing so close together. Their ball control has to be good. You might be able to keep the ball, but you might struggle as well to create opportunities. So here, your roles and duties are still going to be important. Now, when you're playing extremely wide, the other thing that you have to worry about here is, because the players are so far apart, do your players have the skill set to make those kind of passes? Will you be able to launch counter attacks? Because when you play extremely wide, your players might be on the flanks. You might lose the ball because your players are trying to make that crazy deep diagonal, which is a very difficult pass to pull off. So these are things that you will need to consider when you're setting up your tactic. Pass into space is just risky passes. Essentially, you're trying to attack spaces. Now, when you use this instruction, please be aware that, this is great if you're trying to counter attack somebody, but if you're camping in an opponent's half, pass into space can be a premium. So if your players don't have very good off the ball, you're probably going to find that you're losing the ball more often than not. So pay attention to your possession numbers when you start using this. It's a great way to unlock sites, but you need the players to do it, and you need the space to exploit. We also have instructions that overlap. Underlap is slightly different now. The good thing about underlap is that it kind of helps you with your attacking shape, and your boys will be making inside runs. If they're underlapping on the left, your fullback is going to make an inside run. If you overlap on the left, your fullback is going to make an outside run. This is a very interesting way for you to create some of your tactics. I suggest you go out there and experiment with them to find out what it's like. I'm not going to go into too much detail on a lot of these areas. I'll probably do some videos for my favorite ones, including the underlap instructions, which are working sweetly in FM19. As far as some of the other instructions are concerned, the one thing to note is this: play out the defense. In FM19, roles have been reworked. Ball playing defenders can be seen very near the opponent's box in FM19 if you set up your tactic well. Now, some people have complained they don't see their ball playing defenders, ending up in the opponent's half. I have seen my ball playing defenders end up there, provided there's space on the pitch for them to explore. So when I'm playing with a 4-2-3-1, for example, sometimes I use ball playing defenders to carry the ball out of defense, and it's been working like a charm. The next thing I want to look at is set pieces. Set pieces have always been a personal bane of mine because I've seen a lot of shows where people have submitted their saves to me, and I find that set pieces could be a lot better. In FM, you generally want to be looking at 3 zones to defend in set pieces: the far post, the near post, and central areas with the best headers. Now, if you want to score counter attacks really well, then consider the player who's playing in this position and at least one player here. I've got 2 because I'm always looking at launching very quick counter attacks from my corner routines, and I've scored quite a number from them. So this is my personal setup. Now, what about free kicks? Well, SI have done something very nice for FM19. Indirect wide free kicks, when you're defending them, you can finally set play instructions for these, so you can get them to do stay forward, form wall, man mark tall player. Fantastic new changes. I love them, and I'll probably be creating some fancy variations of these when I want to score goals from these 2. When it comes to the assistant manager, well, the game is slightly better in a sense. He does make the right decisions when it comes to the attacking third. Inside forward here, coming on this right foot, which is the correct thing for the player playing on the left side. But in terms of where in midfield, now this is really going to be a personal decision for a lot of people. Sometimes they may want to play different kinds of systems, which may require a different kind of a player. Now, personally, me, as far as I'm concerned, I would think that this Carrero, Frankie de Jong shouldn't be a Carrero here, because if I were to go through the team, I probably think that Carell, I think, is a better one, because he has got positioning, tackling, as well as some decent passing on him. But yeah, this is still ultimately going to be a personal choice for people, and I think that it really depends on how well you know your own team. And I'm kind of glad that SI haven't made this perfect, in the sense that we've got the perfect decisions from the assistant manager, because ultimately the assistant manager's attributes still play a big role in whether or not he chooses the right players. His current ability rating still affects the choices that he's going to make when he's choosing players for the position, and so will his tactical knowledge. So I'm kind of happy that we don't have the perfect ass-man in the game. The ass-man still plays a very big part in training, so I'm going to be using the ass-man for some of my training schedules. So what's the best tactical preset in the game? My recommendation for most people is to start with vertical tiki-taka, because it works in most teams. It's a fairly good system. I had some success with it, and most of the people I've spoken to, they've also had success with vertical tiki-taka. So if you want to start with something, vertical tiki-taka is going to be a very enjoyable style of football. It's more or less how Chelsea play in the English Premier League, so go for it, have fun, enjoy yourself. Are there any exploits in the game? Well, there are always going to be exploits when a human plays against an AI. The loan system is still an exploit. The transfer system is still an exploit. The training system may end up being an exploit for some people. I mean, I'm already thinking of various ways in which I can exploit the system, but that's the way humans are. We are always going to be more creative than an AI. The question at the end of the day is going to be whether or not you want to choose to handicap the AI or whether you want to allow the AI to play on a level playing field. The choice is ultimately going to be yours. The challenge, of course, is going to be in the realm of online gaming where human plays against human in real time. Whether or not those exploit systems can still be an exploit when two humans play, will this tactical creator stand the test of time? Only time will tell, and it's still a bit early for us to start going out there and stating, oh, the system, the AI is not good enough. So I'm still waiting to make that final judgment. Meanwhile, if you have any questions on other features of the Tactical Creator, please drop me a note. I plan to do a lot more videos, and if you have any questions, this could also influence my decision on what videos I'm going to be putting out. You can find me in all the usual places. On Twitter at Bustthenet is one of the easiest ways to find me. On Twitch, I'll be giving away FM keys, so you definitely want to check me out over there. If you have questions, you can always email me at addictedtofm.com or find me on the SI forums. My name is Rashidi. Once again, I'd like to thank all my patrons for their continued support of this channel. You make this kind of shows possible for the rest of the community. Without you, this would not be possible. So you guys take care. Have a good one. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.